Hello, listeners. My name is Donna Quo, and I am a board-certified psychiatric and family nurse practitioner. Welcome to the Brighten Up podcast, where we pull up the shades and shine the light on mental health topics both affecting and improving the lives of families. Please welcome Ms. Tara Lamalfa, registered licensed clinical social worker, to today's podcast honoring breast cancer awareness. Tara is a wife, mother of 3 beautiful daughters, friend to many, sister, and daughter herself. She works as a clinical social worker at Burn Hills High School in upstate New York. Tara is also a breast cancer survivor and has agreed to speak on today's podcast in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Tara, thank you so much for being here today and sharing not only your expertise clinically, but also your bits and pieces of your personal story in hope of sharing them will touch on and help many women on their own journey and their families. Such an honor to have you.
Oh, thank you, Donna. I'm happy to be here and willing to kind of share my story in hopes of it making maybe someone else's journey a little bit easier.
I think what makes it more special is that Tara and I have known each other for a number of years. It seems like just yesterday we met at that camp that we used to bring the kids to. Do you know what I'm talking? In the Jones camp.
Yes.
Our older daughters were friends in elementary school. Actually, my daughter's first sleepover. So that's kind of one for the books, and always just a beautiful person and family. As I was preparing for this and looking at the current trends and statistics in breast cancer, currently it's estimated that there are about close to 300,000 new cases of invasive breast cancer diagnosed each year. Additionally, around 55,000 new cases of non-invasive breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed. Globally, breast cancer is the most common cancer, with about 2.3 million new cases diagnosed each year. Currently in the United States, the average woman has a significant chance of developing breast cancer in her lifetime of about 12.5%. Although rare, men also can be diagnosed with breast cancer. The most recent 2023 statistic revealing 2,800 new cases of breast cancer. The majority of cases are diagnosed in women over the age of 50, though more and more younger women are being affected. With that is prompting more conversation on early detection, self-care, as well as highlighting the higher incidence of breast cancer, but also the significant progress we have made with treatment regimens, conquering it, which is pretty exciting. But not pretty exciting, extremely exciting. Tara, can you share with us when and how you were diagnosed with breast cancer?
So I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma on January 27th, 2021. Earlier that month, I had gone for a routine mammo and ultrasound. And because I have dense breasts, I was getting ultrasounds. And, they called me back because they saw 2 spots on my left breast. Interestingly enough, it was not on my mammogram. My mammogram was clear, but it came up on my ultrasound.
Interesting.
So, they brought me back to do a biopsy. And then the doctor called me January 27th. That day, I remember it clearly. It happened to be a snow day, so all 3 of my girls were home. I had been waiting for the call. My husband also knew that I was going to be getting the call, and when I saw the number on my phone, I went into the laundry room. My husband was in his office, but must have heard it, and he, walked in the laundry room with me. And honestly, Donna, I don't even remember the conversation. Like there's definite parts of the whole journey that is like a blur. but fortunately my husband was there. I think I just remember going into, I don't know if it was survival mode, but pretty quickly getting a plan, and then us being in a position where we kind of had to tell our children pretty quickly because it all moves very fast. And, having that conversation with our loved ones, specifically my three daughters and my mom, was probably the hardest, for sure.
Such a vulnerable moment, when you think of like in the best of circumstances, how demanding managing a family life and being a caregiver, clinical social worker yourself, and then having to process this personal journey that you have to embark on, and you're going to have to coexist with it while managing everything else that you're managing.
100%. And I would say, my husband was right there in the beginning when I got the news. And I always say, like, he was the best co-pilot that I could have ever imagined because he was very level headed. He has kind of a medical background, so he was better able to retain all the medical jargon that it's so hard to understand. And having someone else with you, I think, is really critical. And it doesn't have to be a husband, but a point person.
Yes.
That is with you for all appointments, for all procedures, there to advocate on your behalf. So I'm forever thankful for him in that process.
Well, it's always really been so obvious, his love for you and your three girls, and you two have known each other so many years. I agree, having that medical background that he had and understanding, this is akin to, a medical problem that we have to treat. This isn't an ending, or this doesn't have to be catastrophic. It just has to be worked through. But,
yes.
Now we're 2-3 years post learning about this, Tara, but even, when I saw that first Facebook post that you were going through this, I called you. My heart just sank, like all of those things that we as moms, and also, in mental health care ourselves, it was like bleeding. It was like ripped open. So there it is. It happens.
Yes.
Then it's time to come up with a plan.
Yes. My husband and I, we met when I was 25. It's been 20 years. So I think when you marry someone, you never know, the hand that you're going to be dealt. And I'm just incredibly thankful that, he was as supportive as he was. Because when I think back to especially those early weeks, it was all just a blur.
I can feel it. I can sense it. So he is there with you. You get the information. I'm sure you're told to initially come in the next week or so to discuss, what the treatment options are going to be.
Yes.
And then needing to plan that out and clear your schedule. What did that look like? And what facility did you receive treatment from?
The hard part is that you start, as the word is getting out, people are then reaching out, and everyone is, wanting to be incredibly helpful. And people have loved ones in their lives that have either gone through it, and this is the doctor they went to, or this is the hospital they went to. But it's very overwhelming because you don't even know where to start, because you're thinking, okay, in my mind, I was hyper focused on doing everything locally because in my mind, I wanted to make it as smooth as possible for my daughters and to be home and to not be away from them. And I think I was really hyper focused on that. And so I initially met with a surgeon who was highly recommended by my gynecologist, who, I very much respect her. So the fact that she was referring me to the surgeon, I thought, okay, this is the one I'm going to go with. And my husband and I met with that surgeon. He was great. When I left there, I thought, okay, I'm going to get it done here, some of the planning. And then one of my good girlfriends lives in the city, had kind of reached out to, I have a group of sorority sisters that there's about 10 of us that are extremely close. They lovingly suggested that I get a second opinion at Sloan Kettering because they had a contact there. Mm-hmm. So them, and I would say in combination with my family, like all very much connected with each other. They were collaborating on my behalf in terms of the best way to be able to support me, support my girls, support us. So anyway, I ended up going to Sloan Kettering, meeting with another surgeon to get a second opinion. And I can't imagine if I didn't do that now. That was by far pivotal in terms of my treatment. I left that meeting feeling like, okay, that surgeon that I met with locally was wonderful, probably in my mind, maybe a B plus. Whereas this other surgeon that I met with was just really thorough. She drew everything out for me so I could really understand. And my comfort level with her was, I left there feeling like, okay, I got this. I can do this. Since that time, anytime I hear of anyone getting a diagnosis, even if the first opinion is at Sloan Kettering, you should always, always get a second opinion. And it's one of those things that I've always known, like to me, that seems pretty standard. But I think that when you're in it, you just want to get it done and you just want to get it over with. And you're thinking, I don't have the time to now wait for another appointment or this process. So my advice is to kind of take the time to make sure that you have a treatment team that you really have faith in, because it is a mental game. And the number of times that I was able to remind myself, I'm in good hands. They are the best. And that got me through some really hard moments.
When you're cloudy, wondering how you're going to gather the strength to take the next step, and you know you're in a world-renowned institution with the very best of the best.
Yes.
And I think that's really good advice. Before you jump, take that time, do that due diligence, compare notes, get those two opinions, and make sure that your head is in the game with where you decide to pursue treatment, and that you feel a connection to that team.
Yes.
You were able then to begin treatment, which started with surgery, then chemo and radiation, that extended over about a year.
Yes, I ended up having 3 surgeries, and then you have to wait, a good month to heal before you can start chemo. So, like I said, I was diagnosed in January, probably February. I was done with my surgeries and ready to start chemo in June. And then I finished my last chemo treatment October 27th.
Okay. And we're just, how appropriate is that, right? Right around this time.
Yes. And then I actually returned to work when I finished chemo and started radiation. My principal allowed me to do, radiation in the mornings before I came to work. So I was a little bit late to work each day. And I did my radiation until January. So it was an exact year of treatment, January to January.
I'm sure, as I go through the next couple of questions, it seems like a process like the Japanese art practice, where if a vase cracks, it's not demolished or permanently unusable. It actually is built together even more brilliantly and stronger than when it first happened. And it seems like going through this, Tara, like in a year, that's probably how, at least it appears to me, how you felt along with your family, just having been on that journey together. It was so hard, but powerful to come out the other end.
Yes, I think that the first year while I was doing treatment, it was, I would say, traumatic for myself, my family. But to be honest, I think at the end, my family felt such a sense of relief. My family and friends, I should say. I did too, but I'd say year two, I still was struggling. I don't feel I was not as strong as I hope to be, I think, physically and mentally. Year two had its own set of challenges that I really wasn't prepared for because I don't think anyone talks about that. And so I feel like there was a survival guilt because I was feeling like, okay, I should be thankful, it's over, but your body changes physically and mentally. You long to be the person you were before and to have the life you had before. I remember asking my oncologist from Sloan Kettering, who was fantastic, and she and I had a virtual meeting. I remember I was in Martha's Vineyard actually on a family vacation, and I had a session with her, and I remember crying, just feeling like when I was still having lots of joint pain. I was very lethargic. I had all of these physical symptoms, and I wasn't sure if it was from the medication that I'm now on, which you're on for like 10 years to prevent reoccurrence. And I remember, saying to her, when will I feel like myself again? And she said, Tara, you're not going to feel like your old self. This is your new self, and in time it'll gradually get better. But I think I've had to work hard to embrace kind of this new phase of my life and this new chapter and give myself grace that, okay, if I have to take a nap after work, and I never once did, that's okay. This is just how it is now. And I just try to focus on my blessings and thankful I'm alive. And it's okay that I don't have the energy that I once did. But year three now, I would say, is definitely much better.
Much better. Just adjusting everything that goes on in your body with the surgery, with even the medications, the hormone blockers to prevent relapse. And, as women, the pivotal role that hormones plays for a lot of us on our outlook in life, and learning to adjust to complete turnaround of healing from heavy surgeries and also medication that's changing the grand central station of your body, your hormones, significantly, is certainly achievable. But it's like you said, giving yourself grace and finding gratitude, I think, is, finding the pleasurable things and little things to be grateful for each day, as well as really finding important self-care strategies to take care of yourself.
100%.
Not an option, like you have to.
Yes.
How do you think this journey has affected your family dynamics now that you're 2-3 years removed? How do you feel that's affected your relationships, roles in the family, emotional bonds?
Without a doubt, it just made us stronger. The bond is definitely stronger. I think my girls are a little bit more resilient as a result. The relationship with my extended family and my friends. I mean, I had an army of support, like the outpouring of love from family, friends, neighbors, my work, where my girls went to school. The teachers were amazing. It really does take a village. And I was able to really see how our community and everyone came together to support me, and that outpouring of love not only motivated me to give it my all each day, but I think was pivotal in terms of my girls being able to get through the whole ordeal.
having that blanket of warmth around not only you, but your entire family. Just
correct.
What communities do, what friends do, what love is essentially. Friends love friends and like family. So that was just incredible. During this time with the treatment and the times that you were mentioning feeling tired or needing a nap, did you ever have to kind of come to terms with or work through maybe not trying to protect your family, your daughters, your husband from, what you were going through? Or did that take some time? Sometimes I think just even as busy moms, wives, professional women, like we can just plow ahead. And then eventually, even for me, I can have a day that I will just collapse. I can't really do anything. And then it gets to that point.
I was very honest about everything with my husband through the process. With my girls, my oldest, Mia, was in ninth grade. My middle daughter, Ava, was in seventh. And then my youngest, Alexa, was in fourth grade. So I will say that I tried to model for them healthy ways of dealing with the situation that was not the best situation, but they did see me cry at times. They did know that when I lost my hair, that was huge for me. So I protected them from some, but not from it all, because I do recognize that there is some good that comes from really hard situations like this. And they were able to see that we got through it together as a family and that I utilized support. Sometimes you have to dig deep. So they were able to see that, which I think was beneficial.
Tara, you're so on mark and task with all of your advice and all of the grace you extend to others, and to be that role model for your girls, to have you as their mom and a role model and have experienced this. That is going to be a treasure that, they'll carry the rest of their lives, and a respect for you for having that first and foremost of how do I model, working together as a family and going through a hard time. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That is just so touching and profound. Two things. What would you say or tell other women would be the hardest part of breast cancer? And for families supporting loved ones going through treatment, what did you find most helpful? What gestures offered or extended to you did you find most helpful?
The hardest part is when you're in a constant state of unknowns. And it's not even just breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And that's why I was saying that it's such a mental game, that is the hardest part, because if you're someone that likes to plan, and I'm not even super type A, but in this particular situation, it was, okay, well, I can try to plan, this is when I would start chemo. It'll be during the summer. So then I won't have to take too much time off of work. And then my girls will be home. And anytime I kind of wrap my head around a plan, there would be a curveball and something would happen and we'd have to change the plan. And then it would happen again. And it's just this waiting game. For one of my surgeries, did they, get clear margins? And then they didn't. So then it's your next surgery. And then it's all of these unknowns. It's one thing if it was just me dealing with the unknowns, but it's my loved ones then also in that same state. So you're having to put all the people you love on an emotional roller coaster with you, and that was terrible. I mean, that was gut wrenching just to see how painful it was for my loved ones. Mm-hmm. That was probably it was that. And I would say the second for me was losing my hair. I really tried. I wanted to do the cold capping and had explored that. But because of the pandemic and YOH, I wasn't able to have someone come in with me. And in order to do cold capping, you need to have someone there. Now, when I look back, I think that might have been a blessing in disguise, because from what I understand, and maybe it's different now, but when I went through this, you could go through the cold capping, but then still lose your hair. I think my family was worried, okay, if she puts herself all through this and then loses it anyway, but they were supportive in me making that decision. And I just remember at some point just praying on it and feeling, okay, I'm just going to wrap my head around my hair. When it comes time, I'll be okay. I'm not okay now, but I think that I was so focused on what if I don't lose my hair and some people say, all right, well, shave your head so you could take control over it. I ended up talking to my oncologist from NYOH, Dr. Kalia, who is saint. He's the most amazing human. And one of the things that I appreciated about him is that he never held back. He just kind of told you how it was. And when I had talked to him about it, he said, you're going to lose your hair. There's no way with the chemo that you're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. You should just shave your head. And I remember looking at him and then looking at my husband thinking, did he really just say that? Only he could get away with saying something like that to me because he comes from the best place possible. He was able to tell me exactly what week it would be during my chemo where I would start to lose it. By the time that week came, it was so crazy, but I was ready to do it. And my husband shaved my head, and then I didn't know, but he was planning on shaving his own head, which he did. He's still bald. He still shaves his head.
That's so funny. He still does it just as a...
well, no, he was losing some of his hair, but he still had his hair. But when after he shaved my head, he shaved his. Some people had talked about doing it with the girls and, making it fun, but I couldn't get there. Like, to me, it was still really emotional for me. I was ready to do it, but not in a way that I could. And I admire the people that can. I just wasn't one of those people. And I just even felt for my girls, after they were able to see that I was okay. And I did something I really didn't want to do, but that's how life is. And they were incredibly sweet and supportive, like, oh, Mom, I love, and my sister and friend, like everyone got me, different kinds of hats. And my parents and my in-laws together bought me my wig, which was amazing. That would be my other advice, is if someone is having a hard time parting with their hair, I went and got a really good wig. So it looked almost identical to my hair. And I basically wore that for almost 3 years because I had such thick curly hair that the growing out phase was pretty tough. Mm-hmm. And being able to just have that wig was really, it gave me some peace and comfort that I could leave my house, and people that didn't know me didn't necessarily know that I had cancer. And so I didn't have to talk about it all the time. And my girls didn't have to have conversations about it all the time. The end of chemo, I just felt this overwhelming sense that my family just needed to turn the chapter. And that was a large reason that, and I shouldn't just say my family, I mean, mainly my girls and myself. I was ready to just turn the chapter. I wanted to get back to normalcy. I knew my girls needed with a new school year. And that was part of the reason that I returned to work, probably sooner than anyone wanted me to. But I came back to work because I knew mentally I needed to. It was the best decision for me and my family.
You are somebody, for our listeners, you really do have absolutely gorgeous hair. You always have. You do now.
Thank you. Thank you.
But hair doesn't define us. And if we have to part with it for a period of time, it's a piece of us, but it's workable. Having to live with and accept this altered version of yourself for a period of time. And I think that's great that you actually knew exactly when to expect losing your hair. just to be able to mentally prepare and have that come back. And then, like you said, once the book was closed with the active treatment and the healing process and the readjusting, realigning process, going back to work, I personally believe the best way to feel better is to help other people. And that's what you do every day, Tara, in your job.
Yes. Yes. Having a purpose.
Having a purpose. Yes. 100% having a purpose. In your day in and day out, you still have 2 kids at home, freshmen in college. Mm-hmm. How has this experience changed how you approach your everyday family schedule and outlook on life now?
I definitely try to be more present. I am so thankful and grateful for the simple things. I'll never forget doing my girls' Easter baskets that April after I was diagnosed. And it was so emotional for me because in my mind, I was thinking, is this going to be my last time doing Easter baskets for my girls? That's something like I always love to do. And, such an appreciation for the holidays and the milestones. My daughter graduating high school, just so grateful. And I try to just focus on my blessings. I do try to make more time. I think I've probably put my own self-care, I make that more of a priority because I know how important that is in terms of my stress level and have a healthier balance. I would say that's probably the main difference.
How much of life do we view day in and day out as being a chore or just trying to get through it or grab the next flag, planning a party, yes, getting to these sports events, or definitely something gets lost there. And then you always are thinking back, similar to when you look at your pictures of kids as babies. Wow, I just wish I was just maybe a little more present, just didn't worry as much about non-essentials and just embrace the moment. And having that knowledge while still being so young, Tara, and having so much of your life ahead of you and many more milestones is a gift in and of itself, and can be a struggle for myself in many. So I know it sounds cliche, but I think our greatest challenges turn out to be our greatest gifts.
Yes. And I think in terms of other advice that I would pass on is to let people help you. That was really hard for me to do. But what I realized that in order to get myself through it, I needed to let others, bring food and all of those things that without all of those things, I wouldn't have been able to give as much of myself to my girls. I was able to sleep from treatments while they were at school and then go downstairs and still sit with them while they ate their dinner. Things I tried to maintain as much normalcy and structure as I could. And because I wasn't having to make the dinner, I was able to do that. So letting people help you, getting that second opinion, the importance of feeling comfortable with your treatment providers is huge. Allow yourself to get connected with others that have either already been diagnosed. I had someone that I was close with years ago that had been diagnosed and had heard that I got diagnosed and reached out to me. And she was able to tell me everything that I, would need. Actually sent me a chemo bag with everything that I needed and was able to talk me through that process. And then a few weeks in, I had a couple of people reach out to share that 2 other women in Clifton Park, actually, they were diagnosed. And as a result, the 3 of us kind of went through this together. I was just a few weeks ahead of them. By the time I started radiation, the 2 of them were doing chemo, but it was extremely helpful to be connected with other people that have gone through it. So that way, when you have on year 2, you're still getting joint pain or you're that there's someone else that you can ask, and they're saying, yes, I get woken up with joint pain too. And I'm thinking, okay, so I don't need to reach out to my doctor. This is all normal. But just to have that emotional and mental support is really huge. I'm thankful that I was able to get connected with them on my journey. And I know that sometimes it can be overwhelming, the number of people that reach out regarding other people. And there was a part of me for a period of time that I just wanted to be with myself and my own thoughts and my own family, but then kind of forced myself out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I'm glad that I did. Mm-hmm. And then there's also, I know that there might be mixed feelings on like a support group on Facebook, but that was helpful for me because after my second surgery, I had a terrible allergic reaction. Weren't sure what it was from. And I, had a virtual appointment with a dermatologist from Sloan Kettering, and they were prescribing medication and nothing was working. Long story short, was able to figure it out through the help of this one breast cancer support group, that I ended up being allergic to the dermaprep of what they used on my skin for one of my surgeries. And it was because that had happened to a few other people. So I also just mentioned that could be a really good resource. It's like anything else. Yeah, there are going to be those people that might be a little bit more negative, but you just got to scroll past those comments. And I think having a social network of support is crucial.
I completely agree. I think the support that comes from a shared experience and what that does to thoughts of feeling alone or isolated are profound. You're not alone. There are other people who have gone through that. This is very therapeutic, very reassuring. Like you mentioned, I can relate to wanting just to be alone when something negative happens in life and you're in a position where you're strong for other people and that's the role that you play. It can be hard to kind of go through those stages of grief, I'll call it, and that acceptance that, okay, I'm the one that right now that needs to ask for help and accomplish that. Almost like a surrender, like the serenity prayer, just kind of leaning into it.
Yes.
Last question, Tara. What do you practice for self-care now? How do you take care of yourself?
I always reading almost like a self-help book, but there's lots of them. And I try to make time for that each night where it's even 20 minutes. There's so many good ones out there, but I feel like that was something that I would always, if I would see one that would look good, I'd always say, oh, I'm just going to wait for the summer. And I would push it all to the summer. And now I would say like 5 days out of the week, I try to do more work on myself. And I do listen to my body now in terms of, the exhaustion that I sometimes experience. And so I will allow myself to take a nap when I need to, exercise, walking outside, walking with a friend. Those are all things that recharge me for sure.
Exercise is huge, isn't it? I don't think a lot of people realize it until they start doing it. The effect it has on the neurotransmitters in the brain, and medication will do so much, for the mind, but really learning to meditate or find that place that you can put your brain, in a supportive place to rejuvenate.
One last thought, Donna, that I just, I want to mention. It's hard for me to remember exactly when it was, but I remember it was definitely during chemo where my girls had given me a card and I opened it up. I remember them coming upstairs saying, oh, Mom, you had a friend that just dropped off a card. It was a card with gift cards that you had dropped off. I remember one of the things that you wrote in the card, was how sorry that you were that you had heard the news and if there was anything at all that you could do. And, it's hard for me to ask people for things, But pretty soon after that, I want to say it was within 2 weeks of you dropping that card off at my house, I had a loved one that was really struggling. And because of what you do for a living, I reached out to you, and I just am forever, forever thankful for the help that you gave my loved one. And it was over a year. And it just speaks to, I feel like you're an angel on earth. And I am forever thankful for you just stepping up and so lovingly like giving your expertise and support, because I can't even imagine if you didn't stop by that day and drop off that card, I wouldn't even have thought. So the stars aligned, and I'm really thankful.
You're so kind to say that, Tara. It was my absolute pleasure. I love you and your family, and it was a privilege. I view this work as a privilege. I really do. It's so interesting to me how God has a gift for everybody. Every job that you could ever need. There's such so many different gifts, and thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. And I think you're an angel on earth as well, with the amount of kids that you redirect and help in high school. So
I love it. Thank you. I'm fortunate.
Yeah. Thank you again, Tara, for being here.
Of course. Thank you, Donna.
I feel like the theme song to this podcast is Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. I'm going to play it now.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in today, friends. We appreciate your time and attention, and hope you can share this podcast with someone you love or care about. Until next time, remember to live on the bright side of life, like the sunflower who chooses to face the sun. Take care, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.